Friendly greetings, it's me, Torley. First of all, I would like to give a shout out to my lovely wife, Ravenel, because my head was obscuring it, but back there, if it looks like it's much cleaner, it's because she took all the boxes and stray things. She really did a wonder, and she's good at cleaning around the house. So fantastic, actually. Good is not nearly enthusiastic enough. And upstairs, I smell a nice dinner coming. So, very, very blessed here. I wanted to share some thoughts that relate to my work. Woo, doing documentation at Linden Lab, but more so broadly, how it ties into collaboration. Because I work making wiki pages, and it's such a change for some people. It's a paradigm shift to go from, say, a paper manual that's not expected to be updated until the next major version of a piece of software, and to think, okay, everything's got to be set in here, and sometimes there is an addendum, not an appendix. I'm trying to think of the right word, but sometimes they have last minute changes and they slip in a piece of paper, and they said, well, since we shipped this, there are some new things you should be aware of. And I, in fact, did get that with this H4n recorder. There was something that talked about the latest firmware in there. So let's separate these things, because some people might call out, oh, what do you have against paper manuals? I like them. I like to hold them. Yes, as do I. Did not say anything about not liking them in that fashion, apart from slaying trees. But of course, you can't change paper as easily as you could change e-paper on a Kindle or a text file which can be transmitted and easily updated. This is why I like wiki pages, not because I have some obsession with wiki as a tool for its own purpose, but because very simply, I see something I want to update incrementally, and I do that within seconds or minutes. And I do this all the time at work, both the internal company wiki at Linden Lab and the public one, which I've been a fairly major, I wouldn't say the most major, that's just egocentric and it's not true. But I love contributing because it gives me a sense of sharing that knowledge. Often I have to experiment and figure out things. Like today I published a guide. If you go to wiki.secondlife.com and search for encode video, because I got a lot of questions both from fellow Lindens and my dear residents about how do I encode a QuickTime video to play properly in Second Life so it starts within seconds, because some people have the problem where it loads the whole thing and then only then does it play. And they want to make it portable for iPods and a file that you can upload to YouTube and all that. The great news is you can do all that with one file using the encoding settings that I've done. And of course that went on a wiki page, because as I went along, there were bits and pieces where I was like, that's not quite how I remember. I need to test and need to refine it. So it's like a patchwork quilt that comes together really cohesively, or perhaps like the T-1000 from Terminator 2 Judgment Day, all these little polymimetic alloy blobs joining together to form the whole. It's not so much, because patchwork quilt sometimes conjures the image of it's separate and broken and it's not cohesive. But a wiki is really nice that way. I like opening the edit tab, clicking that, and then perhaps editing a section or the whole thing and running it over piecemeal. It feels so holistically lovely and beautiful to give it that passover. And I think I might philosophize more about this than others, but I think some other people have perhaps felt the same way in doing documentation. It's not just dry writing. There's an art to it, and obviously with the process, you want the best tools available that have minimum overhead so you can focus. Presentation's good, of course, but if you get a tool that lets you focus, really focus on that content, you write some delicious stuff and it wraps it in this framework of gorgeous help. So the key thing is not to fetishize it for its own sake, as I often remind people, but you want to get this to the intended audience, the end user, the residents, the communities of Second Life, so you can help them and help them in a fun way, like wiki.secondlife.com. Thanks to some widgets, we can embed videos. And there's a whole bunch of stuff I could go on if you want to see more. I'm probably going to blog about it at tr.im trim/SLTNT. That's for Second Life tips and tricks. which I do with John, Jeremy, and Caitlin, and it's fantastic. We are very proud of what we do. And, well, more and more and more of it. We've got some really cool things in the work. But this also applies, of course, to wikis abroad, like Wikipedia. I recently edited a page for New Blue. Fast, fast, fast edits there. And they just came like lightning and wildfire. So that's some sorts of things to think about if you're doing documentation, running over something. It doesn't have to be a set in stone like a press release, which there's a deadline and you send out. You can never change it again or pull it back in. Of course, you can always look at the history of a wiki page, which is fantastic for seeing what changed between versions or how did this thing grow. And it gives a real cultural lilt to a lot of this too. So that extra storytelling, because as advanced as humans get, we are not going to, in any foreseeable time in the near future or distant future, going to get away from the power of storytelling. So even when something doesn't seem like an immediate narrative in its clearest, honest sense, there may still be a story behind the works and how something came to be. And I always like hearing about how something I enjoyed, how it was made behind the scenes and the people who were involved in it. Well, anywho, that's just some quick thoughts I wanted to share. I was in the shower and thinking of that. And yeah, this is a Thai silk shirt. I've got my watermelon pants on. They make me feel more lively. And I think that's important because if you're not feeling alive, are you really living? There's a question. Think about it. Bye for now.